Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build. So today we are down in the Cranberry Bog because I needed a large flat piece of ground to build a ranch camp, which came out rather well, I think. So let's jump in. Okay. So yeah, nice flat area of ground here that I've used a few times recently. It started out with the intention of being a farm, but rapidly became a ranch that came out quite nicely. So down in the Cranberry Bog here, somewhat in the bottom right corner of the map. Not quite all the way down there, but it's a good spot. So a few of the local areas here. We're just far enough north that you don't get nuked when somebody hits Fisher Site Prime, and you've got some decentish flat ground here. Not a particularly long run to get water either, so not a bad spot. Kind of on 90 degrees to where I would usually have this facing, but it works quite well. There's Batoga in the background there. So we'll get our foundations in first, and we started off here carefully choosing the starting point, because this needs to be tucked up against the edge of the build area, but also far enough away from it to be able to put foundations all the way around for double siding in a moment. There's the overall layout for you. Got a 6x2 in the middle, and then sort of a set of 2 front and back there as well. So, double siding. There's the contemporary wall set. I would actually recommend using the brick set for this, because I changed my mind in the decoration phase and used the brick sets on the ground floor. As you can use that set for double siding, just like we're going to here, you might as well use it anyway, you know, especially if you don't have to have the contemporary set. So, yeah, food for thought there. But I didn't figure that out till later on, so we're going to fly around and double-side these walls. You can see now why I was careful about my positioning of this. It's quite a big structure, so it needs to be as far back as you can get away with, but it also needs to be far enough forward that the edge of the build zone doesn't cause problems, so little trial and error might be required there. But there we go. Double-sided doors everywhere. Now let's fly around and convert these out to walls. I'll figure the windows out later. There we go. As if by magic, we are done. And now we're just going to put some wallpaper on the outside. And this is going to create that double material kind of vibe. We have stone on the bottom and wood on the top, as we'll see in a moment. But this is the set of wallpapers from, I think, the last season. I think it was the last one. But I quite like using this on the outside. It's not so great on the inside, I don't think, for me. But I do like it on the outside. It's quite a cool look. So, just chucking the staircase in. This is the right way around, but not the final sort of texture I'll use. I'm just kind of getting that in there to build off of, and we'll figure the actual materials out during the decoration phase. So, there is the floors for the upper section. Got a sort of 2x2, is it there? Yeah. That is not roofed over, but the rest of the place is. Let's try not falling out. And we'll put some half-sized log cabin walls on the upper story, which is going to create a nice ranch house for that kind of a bit like John Marston's in Red Dead. That kind of vibe. So as we've got double-sided walls underneath, these half walls can go on top of either one. And what I'm doing here is putting them on the inside on the front edge and on the outer edge on the sides. In hindsight, probably should have done that the other way around. They do need to have one of them on the inner edge and one on the outer, or both on the inner works, but you know, at least one of them has to be on the inner edge, because otherwise you'll end up with gaps, like the one in that corner there. But doing it the other way around would have resulted in a better final look, which I will come back to in the tour, because you'll be able to see what I'm talking about a bit more clearly then. But as it is, we did it the way we did, and it's fine. It just could be a little bit better. This is the roof set from the new Helvetia kit that arrived last week, I believe it was. I think it was last week. Week before, maybe. Either way, I quite like this one. It's a clean kind of wooden shingled roof, and it goes quite well on here. And it's not the bright green that comes with the log cabin set, so that's what we've gone for. Other options are available, however. And as you can see, because these walls are in a particular position, on the outer edge here, it's trying to snap the roof on the wrong way around, so I've used those triangles to kind of encourage it to snap the right way, which does kind of work. And now the first roof I've put on is preventing this latest one from snapping in, because we've got collision on the corners there, which is a bit annoying. If you change these out for flat roofs and then snap them in flat, and then converted them afterwards to the angled ones, that might work. In hindsight, but what I actually did was flamethrower it in a minute, as we'll see. This roof section ended up being a little bit more of a faff than some of the others, so we'll look at it in a bit more detail. We'll do the same thing on this side. Use the triangle pieces to encourage it to snap on the inside of the building, not the outside. That would also be kind of solved by having the walls the other way around on the inner section rather than the outer that I was referring to earlier. But it works, so we'll manage. In the meantime, we might as well put the triangles on here, even though it's not actually going to help me. They need doing anyway. There we go. Come back to the roofs, you see, they're still colliding in that corner, and it won't work. So, back to the old standby. Here comes the flamethrower trap. Hop up onto the roof, drop that on there, and make sure you place it on the section that you're not destroying, because otherwise it'll disappear and you'll have to build multiples or faff around and stuff. You can save yourself a bit of hassle by making sure it's on a different section of roof when you activate it. There we go. Nice and easy. If we're quick, we can get both halves off a single activation. Nice. In fact, I probably didn't need to move it at all on that last one. So, with those destroyed, we can now persuade this to snap where we want. Nice. So we'll do a quick 180, do the same at the back here. And now, we're left with this big open area in the middle. And you can kind of see there, if I put this roof on all the way across, because I do want it to run front to back through the middle, we're not going to be able to get into the side rooms. So we're going to have to lift this roof up a little bit. So the slant walls will do the job nicely there. Get those in now. If we get those in early, then it'll snap okay, rather than messing around when the roofs start interfering. So there we go. Get these roofs in, and now we've got plenty of headroom to actually get into what will be our side rooms upstairs, the bedrooms. There we go. Looking good. We can repair these and push on. So I've put some triangle pieces up there that we don't actually need, because I'm going to do this a little differently in a minute. There's another thing I want to do first, which is swap these half walls out for the version that has the thick beam at the top. There's two versions of it. And the ones that are directly in contact with the roof here, I'm going to swap for the thick beamed versions. The ones that are just part of larger log cabin walls, I won't. But where they connect to the roof, you'll see sometimes you get a bit of daylight coming through, and they don't look quite supported properly and stuff. So using the thick beam eliminates that issue. It's just a little aesthetic thing, but it's nice to do. So, a couple of railings in here so we don't fall off our little mezzanine level. And I was thinking about putting ones on the sides here, but I realised I actually want to enclose these bedrooms fully, which is why those triangles at the top near the roof there were a mistake. So we'll pull those out. That does mean, however, an entire plain wall will just go straight in the gap quite nicely. That bit of collision notwithstanding. And you need a wall underneath to make sure it doesn't have that collision issue, because technically it's not on the floor. That one isn't anyway, technically. But we solved the problem there. One underneath, then you can take it out later. This one on this upper side, once I remember to take the triangles out, will just go in fine because there's already a wall underneath, which is going to stay there. One problem I did have as well, for some reason, the doors didn't want to snap in here. Plain walls will go in just fine, but the ones with door frames, not so much. No idea why, it was just awkward, but put a plain wall in and change it out, problem solved. Sort of weird random little issue there, but it does work. Very close to the door frame with the roof there, but I think we're okay with that. It's only a teeny tiny bit. Once the doors are in, you won't be able to tell. So, going back in time a tiny little bit here, I'm going to put a bathroom in downstairs. So, this section over here, we're going to divide in half with double-sided walls. There we go, convert those back to walls, and I'm going to change my mind on where I want the door, which is why we took this one out and caused problems earlier. Now, we can have the door here. Change that back out, go back through, change that for a wall. Sorted. So that's our bathroom in. And now, last thing we need to do to dress this up to make the outside look neat and tidy and complete rather than a bit weird as it currently does, is the porch is. And we're going to have to use both corner pieces on this one. That's an internal corner, or a concave corner, I guess. But I've not really used those, and it's quite interesting to look at. So, turns out they work quite nicely in there. You can't tell whether or not you got it right because the planks on the floor will be the right way around, so that does help. There we go. Looking good. Now we'll finish it off on this side. And with a few little bits of extra building still to go, we'll discuss in the tour, which is coming up in just a moment, because it looks about that time, I think. There we go. One finished ranch. As I say, I'm really pleased with how this came out. We're able to use a few little bits and pieces that have come into the game in the last few weeks as well that really kind of pulled this whole build together in a way that it probably wouldn't have worked as well as a few weeks ago. So we've got the new Helvetia fences here, and these have curves to them. Yeah, there's straight versions, curved versions, long ones, short ones, all sorts of things. And I've used a mixture of them here just to kind of get closest front edge, which really gives it that ranch vibe, whereas if it was just open, it kind of wouldn't work quite as well. So I'm quite pleased with those on there. And using the Helvetia ones, especially as they're quite large and long and sort of pre-made things, meant that you end up with using less budget on the fences, so that's quite helpful. At least I feel like it did. Not 100% on that assertion, but, you know, it's cool. So there we go. A few little buildings together here. Got the shed over there that I will have to have a bit of a chat about in a moment, because that one was a bit of a head-scratcher in some ways. Over here we've got a little... Well, it's really a field, but it was intended to look like a paddock. So if this was a ranch, this is a paddock for the horses. Obviously we don't have horses, so I stuck my crops in there. And a little bit of hay at the back there as well. And yeah, I wanted to use the barbed wire to create that little paddock vibe, because it looks good and it gives that ranch feeling, which is quite nice, even though we don't really have horses to go on our ranch. And yeah, kind of grew out of the idea of building a farm this, and came out, I think, probably better than my initial farm idea would have done as well. New windmill generator works really, really well for this. It really fits in, as do the wagons there. I wish they didn't bulldoze the grass quite as thoroughly as they do, but it is what it is. Got a few bits on the decoration on the porches there. I didn't go heavy on it because this is right at the build limit, and that was a bit of a problem, but we managed to decorate it enough to give the right impression, though not as thoroughly as I would have liked. There's a couple more of the Helvetia fences there, just following that curve around a little bit. And here's our little shed. So my original idea for this was to build a full-size barn here, but the build area, specifically the circle as opposed to the budget, was just not big enough. Putting a big enough barn to give the right vibe and the right look would have meant that it stuck out in front of the house or just wouldn't fit in the build area in some other way. So I converted it over to a small shed idea, which can tuck a bit further back and then doesn't kind of obscure the house, so it looks better. Mostly an aesthetic decision, but quite happy with the results. Really like the reclaimed wood look on this. For a small shed, the barn stuff didn't look quite right, so I went with the abandoned mine kit. The base game wood set that you start out with when you first make a character, that would probably work quite well here as well. So you've got options. And coming in, we've got just a little corner-shaped thing here. That technically the build edge of the build zone kind of cuts in the corner there anyway, so an L shape works quite nicely here. But yeah, simple, not much decoration in here. There's a little bit in that back corner. But the workbenches are sufficiently busy here that it kind of doesn't matter too much. I could probably have put even less in here and still had it look good and saved on some budget. But most of that's just because it's such a small space. If it was a bigger space, it would have needed more decoration, I think. But because everything's crammed in nice and tight, it looks kind of busy enough on its own. So I'm quite pleased with this, especially with a couple of extra bits and pieces. Looks all right, I think. Does the job. There's a little crafting space. I do like that abandoned mine set. It's really nice, like reclaimed wood vibe if you want that kind of look. Definitely one of my favourites recently. Got my Collectron and my Symptomatic tucked in the back corner there because I wanted to have them for sort of practical purposes, but also they kind of don't blend into the rest of the build, so if we shove them in the back corner, they're a little less noticeable, which helps a bit. So we've got the chimney poking out the top there from the fireplace. That's the new fireplace from the last season. That has the chimney extensions on it. So I just flamethrowed the roof on that and then just kept snapping them until they were the right height, which looks okay, I think. Yeah, as I say, not too heavy on the decoration on the front here, just enough to give the right impression, but obviously budgetary considerations being what they are, we had to make do with the implication rather than a heavily decorated front porch. Well, same for the whole build, really, to be honest. Got a couple of vendors out here, though, and the little benches and stuff made out of the canoes. You probably hear our friendly neighbourhood Mega Sloth just making some noise outside my field there. I was a little worried about this guy. I thought he might decided to go hostile because I was a bit too close, but he didn't. But where he spawned over there behind the field can be a bit of an issue with enemy spawns in this spot sometimes. Let's head on in. Yeah, I like this place. I would have liked more detailed decoration, a bit more heavily decorated, but big space, limits to the budget, so it is what it is. Got a little seating area down here, nice and comfortable. I was thinking I could possibly have put a dining table in the middle there, but I've had to claim back the budget from somewhere else to do that. I took the organ out maybe, and maybe put a little less decoration in the shed or something, I might have been able to do it, but I'm kind of okay with the way it looks at the moment. Looks alright, this little space, I think. Yeah, it's just enough decoration to give you the right vibe, I think. You kind of can't tell so much from this angle, which is alright, but the top of these wallpapered walls, because they're double-sided, and as I said earlier, I put the upper walls on the outer edge. You kind of have a lip on the inside, which is not quite ideal. So that's where I would have, the other reason I would have pulled it back. So, moving to the kitchen though, I really quite like this one. It's come out quite nicely. Got our little cellar down there, that is actually my shelter entrance. Just pulled the foundation out down there after I'd got the walls in. The floor is, the ground rather, is just high enough up that I could just drop the shelter entrance in, lift it up to the right height, and then just snap the foundation straight back through. No fancy anything required really. It was quite neat and tidy and went straight in, no problem. Nice little cooking station there, and worktops that come together quite nicely. Again, a little basic on the decoration here, but it's enough to give the right impression. Got a toaster in the corner that I'm quite happy about. Had to flamethrower the cooking station to get that in, but that worked okay. And then added the countertops afterwards. And we got ourselves a little breakfast bar that came out quite nicely too, so fairly pleased with that. That's the other reason I didn't put the table in out front, because well, we've got a nice little breakfast bar there. So, do a little look around here. That Vault Boy painting, by the way, was from a Twitch bundle back end of last year, I believe it was, so it's unfortunately not available anymore. I don't use it a lot, but I thought it was fun to include there for this time. Might be a ranch, but it's still a ranch of Fallout after all. We'll head down the side corridor here. They put a little kind of office space in. I do like to do that. It's kind of fun to decorate the desks sometimes, so squeeze one of those in down at this end. Got a safe and a filing cabinet there. We now have, to complement our toaster from before, typewriters, which we can put on desks. So I was actually able to fully decorate this one myself, which I'm quite happy about. Came out rather nicely. Judging by the data mines, by the way, the next season coming up, as of time of recording, will also have a whole bunch of little bits like the typewriters and stuff for camp building, so that's going to be really nice to have as well, so I'd keep an eye out for that one. I will confirm when I get the chance and let you know. There we go. Here is our bathroom. I was going to call that a kitchen then. Yeah, reasonably happy with this one. In hindsight, I think I used the wrong wallpaper. Should have gone with something a little bit more old school, less modern really in design. But otherwise, it gives the right vibe. I might come back around and change that on my own time maybe, but on the whole, I'm quite happy with this. One of my more spacious bathrooms, I think. Really does the job quite nicely. And we've got a clean bath to go in there now as a result of the current season, which is quite nice. I'm glad I got to use that. Can finally have a fully clean bathroom, which works quite well with the rest of this camp, which is pretty clean on the whole. But works quite nicely. I love my scrappy builds, but sometimes a good clean one comes together quite nicely, and I think this is a good example of that. You can see it changed the stairs out for the log cabin ones, because it just kind of works better with the woodwork up top, and basically any of the other options. And yeah, 9-ball pool table up here. This was kind of a bit of dead space really, this sort of mezzanine balcony area, and that's often the case, as it's a kind of a corridor in its own way as well, but putting the pool table in there worked quite nicely. I'm pleased that went in as well as it did. Here's the master bedroom. Again, light touch on the decoration, but you get the vibe. We've got a little dressing table there and everything you essentially need. The light decoration kind of gives it a bit of a holiday cottage vibe, which is a bit unfortunate, but it does kind of work. Had to position the bed carefully though, and the rug that it's on more to the point, because the walls beneath actually clip through the floor in there, which is kind of annoying, and I don't know why. You can see the top of the wall underneath. And the upshot of that is that I needed to cover the top of that bit of floor. So we managed to deal with that in the decoration. It worked okay. Put the rug over the top. Didn't have that problem on this side, though. So we have a reasonably nice little children's bedroom. And with twin beds rather than bunk beds, just because the low ceilings, basically. And again, light touch on the decoration, but just enough to kind of give that right vibe. And yeah, it's come together quite nicely. Even if it's a little bit holiday home show home in a way. Those of you who played Red Dead 2 might remember, oh, you see the top of the wall at the top there that was bugging me, and why I would have pulled that front wall back a bit if I'd realised. Yes, anyway, those of you who played Red Dead 2 in particular will remember how John Marston came by his ranch house. And if not, well, you can either play it and I won't spoil it, or you can check out my stream of it. There's a whole playlist on that. But yeah, there's bits of this being not too heavily decorated to kind of evoke that a little bit, so I'm kind of cool with that. Do quite like it. But I think we did the job okay. I'm particularly pleased with how this front sort of area came out and how it looks the part, especially given that Fallout doesn't always lend itself to this sort of thing so easily. But there we go. I hope you folks enjoyed this particular build. I'm quite pleased with it. If you did like the video, please do consider dropping subs and likes. Down below as well, you can find social media links, merch store, channel memberships on the blue join button. If you're interested in supporting the channel that way, it hugely helps out and I massively appreciate it. So massive thank yous on that front. And if you get a chance, join us for live streams as well. We are, of course, playing Fallout 76, having a good time with that. And we're going to be progressing from Resident Evil 4 to Redfall very, very soon. So that should be a good time as well. I do hope you join for those streams as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.